It just kind of sniffs of desperation a little bit. I do have references, but I don't want to give out my customer information, especially to other contractors. Didn't have references, was available first thing tomorrow morning. And I'm like, I don't have time for that. Oh, okay, that sounds good, I guess, even though my intuition was like, do not hire this person.
Tracy, is there any other red flags that you would tell people to be aware of?
I have had experience with guys that are like, I'm available now, or I can be there at 5 o'clock in the morning. That sense of, it just kind of sniffs of desperation a little bit. And then also I'm like, if you're really available at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning, what else do you not have going on that now all of a sudden I'm going to be the target of?
Top priority.
Yeah. So it's different if you've worked with people for a long time and you're like, hey man, I got finished work coming up. Can you squeeze me in? Completely different. I'm talking about when you're looking for new subs and someone doesn't have references. Like I was calling for some new finished guys the other day on a different project that's nowhere near my normal projects. And one guy had told me, I do have references, but I don't want to give out my customer information, especially to other contractors. Right. And he didn't have a website. Handyman, just for reference, for those of you listening, typically don't have to have a contractor's license. If they're doing usually under $1,000 worth of work, they don't have to be licensed, but you take a chance, right? You either pay a premium if someone's licensed, bonded, and insured, or you can find unlicensed finish people, but you have to do your own due diligence for whatever is available. Sure. So and I was seeing if he wanted to send me pictures, seeing what he would say, didn't do that, didn't have references, was available first thing tomorrow morning. And I'm like, I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Just shake the tree, find someone else. So all of that is to say, especially ladies, if you don't feel right about a person, that is a no. I need to feel comfortable and feel like I'm 100% okay with this because I'm typically going to be on site with these guys by myself. And especially when there's money involved, we need to make sure up front we know how that's going to get taken care of. We have great communication. Do I get a good vibe off of this person as well? As unofficial as that sounds, after I've gone through the rest of my due diligence, I'm like, do I feel like I could be in a house by myself with this person? So that's my litmus, and I don't break those rules anymore. Even if I have to wait a couple days or pay a little bit more of a premium, cheap is not always the best, and someone that's like, I'm available right now, that's not a good sign typically either.
And that's a little bit different because you touch on a point that most men don't have to think about, because as a woman, you're going to meet these contractors late at night. You're going to meet them early in the morning. You may be the only person there with this person. And if you don't know him and you get that eerie vibe, you just never know. So that's very key what you just touched on, that we as men, we don't even consider.
Probably never crosses your mind.
Right.
And it has never been an issue. I mean, there's been a few times where it got a little bit weird. But again, it's before I understood how to do better due diligence. And I don't want to say I attracted these people, but you just don't know what you don't know. And so you're like, oh, okay, that sounds good, I guess, even though my intuition was like, do not hire this person. And I went against my better judgment. So that is a hard and fast rule if you're listening. If you don't feel good about this person, it is a hard no. But once I started following my own rules and finding great guys that charge fair pricing, they know exactly when I'm going to pay them. They know how I operate. I show up with a different energy. It's not a, BS time. It's like, hey, let's get this done. But we also have fun. Construction's hard.
Right.
These guys want to know that they can get their work done and also have good leadership and when they're going to get paid and exactly what needs to be done and not have to show up guessing. You don't have fixtures there for them. They don't have a clear scope of work. They don't know when they're getting paid. That's typically what causes a lot of issues. So I've made it not an issue by doing these other things that help tremendously. So, I mean, when I first got started, I had some of those issues, but I learned very quickly.
Through learning.
And put those rules in place, and it hasn't been an issue since.
Have you ever walked into your job site in the morning and one of the contractors was sleeping there?
No.
Oh.
That happened to you, Mike?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've had all sorts of things happen, but typically it's like when you're going through sellers' houses and you see everything.
Yeah, everything. All right, so what do you think will change about flipping here in the next, 6 to 12 months?
Man, if I had a crystal ball, we'd all be a lot richer, right?
Kind of got one right.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
the crystal
somewhat.
Azreia ball, totally. I do think that for the period of time, and this is partially to do with the lending side of the operation, lenders are a lot more conservative, and so unless you are really well capitalized, and those usually aren't the type of people that are brand new to fix and flipping, it's going to cull the people that maybe had a little bit of money, a lot of desire, and no experience to just go out and buy properties and get floated because of what the market is doing. I see more experienced buyers like, ourselves being able to follow processes and procedures, systems, go through the comps like we talked about, put out a great product, but also again, bake in a sense of conservatism for what we're doing, because I'm having to build in bigger margins now too.
Yeah.
Whereas before, how it goes with seller's market versus a balanced or buyer's market is, hey, it's really difficult to get good projects, but it's super easy to sell them.
Right.
Whereas when you flip-flop that equation, it's like, hey, it might be a little bit easier to get discounts on properties right now, but you're going to have, and I use this term loosely, a harder time, meaning there aren't 10 buyers sending you an overlist price contract the first day you go to market. It's like normal, if I can use that word.
Yeah.
So that's going to freak a lot of people out, because you actually have to have an approach that has systems, processes, procedures, professionalism, like your numbers, your fundamentals all baked in. And I know I sound like a broken record, but for the last decade, and especially the last few years, all of that went out the window.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could get funding, you could get a project and you could just take it to market. You were making a profit. And now the lenders have backed off of, what they're willing to lend at. Even private money lenders typically are a little bit more conservative. So I just think it's going to highlight the people that are professional to be able to keep doing what we're doing, because in front of some of the Azreia classes that we've been doing in last month's meeting, I said, tell me if you think that buyers are less particular now. And, who thinks that? And no one raised their hand, because affordability has not changed. We thought that prices were going to drop, but something has to give. Either interest rates have to go down, prices have to go down, something has to happen. And we've seen demand come back up because sellers are starting to be okay with, I guess, the 6% stuff is sticking around for mortgage rates, but those prices haven't really dropped. And wages haven't gone up tremendously. So buyers are very particular about, hey, I'm willing to pay a premium, but this house has to be move-in ready.
Perfect.
I have to be emotional about when I see this house, like this is my home and I'm willing to pay for it. So we as flippers have to think of, if I were a buyer in this area, what's going to get people really excited and the value of my property. New windows, the AC's newer, the roof is new. You're not going to have to spend $15,000 once you move into this property because I put in, white shaker cabinets and quartz countertops and grige on the walls. And then come to find out a year later, there's $15,000 worth of work that needs to be done on the major systems. People do not have that sort of float anymore.
So let's go into that. So you're kind of going into your go-to-market strategy. So let's hit some points on that. So what's that mean?
Right. So making sure all your finish work is done when you're doing a final walkthrough with your finish guys. I'm blue taping everything. It's not done until all the blue tape is removed and okayed. Also, the professional pictures, like we talked about, I want to reach through the screen when I see people like do the agent, the agent cha-cha, we'll call it. We're going to coin that, the agent cha-cha, where it's like, man, you just spent $50,000 on this rehab. You're really going to let the sucker come through here and do that with their phones? Like, spend a couple $100. It's one of the highest ROI things that you can do. But also the wording in your listing and what are you really highlighting, and making sure that that the agents know exactly how much they're going to get paid if they bring you, if they bring you an offer sooner rather than later. And all these things, it's like, is it getting syndicated? If I walk into the front door, even though it might look good online, like, is the garage always broom swept? Does the house look good? Because I've been to flips where it looks great. And I'm like, why isn't this selling? You walk into it and there's an odor and things don't look very polished. It's like, it looks like they just kind of wrapped up, took pictures and left. And people just get the ick about that.
I like that because sometimes you see some really great pictures and you get in the house, you're like, oh, it kind of lets you down a little bit if it's not kept up and clean. For a lot of the showings, a lot of realtors, you see footprints walking through, or Yeah, interesting.
Well, it's
or
a lot-
staging. Mhm.
Yeah.
What do you think about staging?
I think it's great.
You doing that now?
Yeah. Oh, I've always
Always
done
done
it.
it.
A lot of this stuff I've always done, and it's the same thing I teach in flip
Yeah.
school. Like, it's amazing that again, all these things just went out the window the last few years because you really didn't have to.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, I don't want to leave a trail of crappy houses around Phoenix. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
so
right. That's great.
I put pride in my product, but I also found cost-effective ways to be able to do this. If you're so inclined, there's things like virtual staging. I mean, some of the institutional buyers do that, you know, where they're putting these really modern designer-looking furniture staging or virtual staging.
Right.
And then you look at the kitchen, you're like, bro, really? Like, it's from 1970 and they're, you know, virtually throwing lipstick on a pig here. But, you know, if you're so inclined, you can do virtual staging. I prefer the live staging. I just think it's a little bit more textile of an experience when people go there. Most people are not good at visualizing space even when they're in it. Like, you can look at a 2D picture and say, hey, that looks great. It's stylish. But when I'm there, I don't know quite how my living room furniture is going to fit here. So if you're on it, we're all on a budget. So one of the things I like to do with that budget is create vignettes in the most important areas. So living room, dining, and master.
What's that?
A vignette's just like a little setup of like a
You knew?
highlighting a certain area.
Yeah,
Marcus
sorry.
knows what's up.
Sorry. Okay. I
Yeah.
learned something.
Yeah. So, you know, you don't have to deck out the whole house, but creating in the most important areas where people spend their time, or they might have a hard time visualizing their furniture or how they're going to live, utilizing those areas for your staging.
So we got